Imagine walking into a room without saying a word, yet your presence commands attention. People watch how you move, how you carry yourself, how you respond, not with desperation, not with the need to be seen, but with quiet confidence. There is something different about you, something rare, something powerful. You do not chase, yet people gravitate toward you. You do not beg for respect, yet it is given freely. What is it that makes some people naturally valued while others struggle to be noticed? It is not about appearance, status, or wealth. It is about energy, about the silent actions that speak louder than words. Most people believe that value is something you demand, something you prove, something you fight for. But the truth is, the most respected individuals do not demand anything. They do not prove their worth. They simply embody it. They move differently. They speak less but mean more. They know exactly who they are, and in doing so, they create a space where others must either rise to meet them or fall away. Today, we are going to talk about the 5 silent actions that make others value you, not because you force them to, but because they have no other choice. Your presence is a silent language, a force that speaks before you utter a single word. It is the energy you bring into a room, the way you carry yourself, and the unshakable certainty that radiates from within. Most people focus on what they say, believing that their words will make others value and respect them. But words alone do not hold power. Energy does. The moment you step into a space, before any conversation begins, the way you exist in that space determines how others perceive you. This is the power of presence. Presence is not about being loud, commanding attention, or forcing people to notice you. It is about the way you embody self-worth in every movement, every glance, every breath. When you are fully present within yourself, when you have cultivated a deep connection with who you are, people naturally take notice. There is an undeniable magnetism in someone who walks with certainty, speaks with intention, and exists with a sense of purpose. They do not seek approval because they have already validated themselves. They do not chase attention because they are already complete. Imagine 2 individuals entering a room. One walks in hurriedly, head slightly down, eyes scanning the room nervously, seeking familiar faces or some form of external reassurance. The other walks in with a steady pace, shoulders back, eyes calmly observing the space, taking in the moment without urgency. Without speaking, which person do you instinctively respect more? Which one seems to own the space, to carry an energy of quiet confidence? The second person. Not because they are trying harder, but because they are simply being. Presence is about embodiment. It is about existing in a way that requires no validation. People can sense when someone is truly at peace with themselves. They can feel when someone is deeply rooted in their own worth. And because energy is contagious, they respond accordingly. When you hold yourself with self-respect, others follow suit. But when you shrink, hesitate, or seek approval, you unconsciously communicate that you are unsure of your value. And people pick up on that too. And the reason presence is so powerful is that it transcends words. Words can be rehearsed, manipulated, or misinterpreted, but energy does not lie. A person with presence does not need to over-explain, defend, or prove themselves. They simply exist in their truth. They know that their value is not dependent on external validation, but on their own self-perception. This creates a natural sense of authority, not forced, but felt. People gravitate toward those who seem to have something, even if they can't quite define what it is. That something is presence. Cultivating presence begins with internal work. It requires self-awareness, self-respect, and a deep sense of certainty in who you are. The way you feel about yourself when no one is watching will reflect in the way you carry yourself when everyone is. If you are constantly questioning your worth, doubting yourself, or seeking reassurance, it will manifest in your posture, your tone, and your energy. But when you develop an unshakable sense of self-worth, when you truly believe in your own value, it becomes effortless. Presence is not something you do, it is something you become. A major aspect of presence is learning to be comfortable in silence. Many people feel the need to fill every space with words, to explain themselves, to seek approval through constant interaction. But true power lies in the ability to remain still, to allow silence to exist without discomfort. A person with presence does not rush to speak. They listen, observe, and respond with intention. This creates a sense of control, a quiet authority that makes others lean in rather than pull away. Body language plays a crucial role in presence. The way you stand, the way you move, the way you make eye contact, these subtle details speak volumes about how you see yourself. Someone who fidgets, avoids eye contact, or takes up as little space as possible sends a subconscious message of insecurity. But someone who stands with ease, who holds steady eye contact without force, who moves with deliberate grace, this person commands respect without saying a word. Breath is another key element. Shallow, rapid breathing signals nervousness and uncertainty. But slow, deep breaths anchor you in the present moment. When you breathe with intention, you slow down, not just physically, but energetically. You become fully present, fully aware, fully engaged with the moment. And that is felt. Presence is also about detachment from external outcomes. A person who needs others to validate them, who constantly seeks reassurance, is not truly present. They are trapped in the mind, caught in worries about how they are being perceived. But when you release the need for validation, when you are simply content with being, you move with a different energy. You are no longer trying to be liked, you are simply expressing who you are. And ironically, that authenticity is what makes people value you even more. In a world where people are constantly seeking external validation, where attention is fleeting and energy is scattered, the ability to be fully present is rare. And because it is rare, it is powerful. The next time you walk into a room, before you speak, before you interact, take a moment, breathe, feel your presence. Let your energy speak before your words do. Because when you master the art of presence, people do not just hear you, they feel you. And that is something they will never forget. Mastering your emotions is one of the most powerful ways to command respect and value in any relationship. People are naturally drawn to those who possess inner stability, who can remain calm in moments of uncertainty, and who do not allow external circumstances to dictate their inner state. When you have emotional control, you are no longer reactive. Instead, you become intentional, measured, and deliberate in your responses. This ability not only makes you more attractive, but also positions you as someone who others look up to and rely on. Many people go through life reacting to everything around them. They allow their emotions to control their actions, words, and decisions, often regretting their responses later. Reactivity comes from a lack of inner grounding. When someone triggers an emotional reaction in you, whether through their words, their behavior, or even their absence, and you immediately lash out, defend yourself, or over-explain, you hand over your power. You are essentially saying, you have control over how I feel. But when you master your emotions, when you learn to pause, process, and choose how to respond, you become someone who cannot be easily shaken. And that is a rare and valuable trait. But there is an unspoken authority in a person who does not allow their emotions to dictate their behavior. Imagine someone who remains composed even when faced with a difficult situation. They do not rush to react. They do not allow frustration to cloud their judgment, and they do not become defensive when challenged. Instead, they take a moment, observe the situation, and respond with clarity. This level of control is powerful because it shows that they operate from a place of self-awareness rather than impulse. Others instinctively respect this because emotional stability is a sign of true inner strength. Most people mistake emotional mastery for emotional suppression, but these two concepts are entirely different. Suppressing emotions means ignoring them, pretending they do not exist, or pushing them down until they eventually explode in unhealthy ways. Emotional mastery, on the other hand, is about acknowledging your emotions, understanding them, and choosing how to process them in a way that benefits you rather than harms you. It is about recognizing that emotions are temporary and that reacting impulsively in a heightened emotional state often leads to regret. One of the most powerful things you can do in moments of emotional intensity is to pause. The simple act of taking a deep breath before responding can change everything. When you feel triggered, whether by a comment, a situation, or an unexpected challenge, pausing allows you to step back and observe the emotion rather than be consumed by it. It gives you a moment to ask yourself, Is this reaction going to serve me? Will my response align with who I want to be? More often than not, the initial emotional response is not the one that leads to the best outcome. But when you create space between emotion and action, you gain the ability to choose your response wisely. Another key aspect of emotional mastery is not taking things personally. People project their own insecurities, fears, and experiences onto others all the time. When someone is rude, dismissive, or unkind, it is rarely about you, it is about them. But if you internalize their words or behavior, you allow their emotional state to control yours. When you understand that how people treat you is often a reflection of their own internal struggles rather than your worth, you stop reacting emotionally to every slight, insult, or moment of indifference. Instead, you observe. You recognize that their actions say more about them than about you, and you move forward without being emotionally affected. Emotional mastery also involves understanding that not everything requires a response. There is power in silence, in choosing when and how to engage, rather than feeling the need to react to everything. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. When someone tries to provoke you, seeking an emotional reaction, and you remain unmoved, it sends a clear message. You are not easily controlled. You are not available for drama, for negativity, for manipulation. And that alone makes people respect and value you more. Practicing emotional regulation requires self-awareness. It requires you to recognize your emotional triggers and patterns. What situations tend to make you feel reactive? What types of comments make you defensive? What behaviors from others stir up feelings of frustration or insecurity? When you identify these patterns, you gain the ability to shift them. Instead of reacting automatically, you become conscious of your tendencies and start to rewire your responses. This is where real transformation happens. Breath work, meditation, and mindfulness practices are all tools that help in mastering emotions. The more you train yourself to remain present, the more control you gain over your emotional state. When you are centered, when you are grounded in the present moment, external events lose their power over you. You no longer feel the need to defend, prove, or explain yourself. You simply exist in a state of calm, choosing what deserves your energy and what does not. Emotional mastery also builds resilience. Life is unpredictable and challenges will arise, but when you have control over your emotional state, you do not crumble under pressure. You adapt. You see obstacles as temporary, setbacks as lessons, and difficulties as opportunities for growth. This mindset makes you unshakable. People respect and value those who can handle life's challenges with grace because it shows a level of self-leadership that is rare. At the core of emotional mastery is self-trust. When you know that you can handle any emotional experience without losing yourself, you develop an inner confidence that radiates outward. People sense when someone is emotionally secure, and they naturally gravitate toward them. Emotional mastery is not about denying emotions, it is about understanding them, processing them, and choosing responses that align with your highest self. And when you achieve this, you become someone who others deeply respect and value. Holding boundaries without explanation is one of the most powerful, silent actions that make others, especially men, value you. Boundaries are an unspoken declaration of self-respect, a way of teaching people how to treat you without needing to say much at all. Many people struggle with boundaries because they feel the need to justify them, to explain why they have certain standards, or to seek approval for maintaining them. But true strength comes from setting a boundary with quiet certainty. No justifications, no over-explanations, no need for validation. It is in that silence, in that unwavering stance, that people recognize and respect your value. When you explain your boundaries too much, you unconsciously invite negotiation. The moment you say, I don't allow this because, or I expect this because, you create an opening for someone to challenge you, to test whether your standards are flexible. And when they see that you are willing to engage in a debate about your boundaries, they begin to question whether they are firm or if they can be bent. This is why some people repeatedly push limits. They are testing how much you truly stand by what you say. But when you set a boundary without the need for justification, you communicate that it is non-negotiable. It is not up for discussion. It simply is. The most valuable people in life do not beg for respect, nor do they plead to be treated well. They embody a silent, unshakable standard, and people recognize it instinctively. Imagine two individuals, one who explains their boundaries at length, trying to convince others to respect them, and another who simply enforces them without a word. The first person may seem reasonable, even logical, but they are also giving away power. The second person, however, radiates quiet authority. Their boundary stands firm, and because they do not seek validation for it, people naturally take it more seriously. The key to holding boundaries without explanation is confidence. Confidence in your worth, confidence in your decisions, and confidence in your ability to walk away from anything that does not align with your standards. When you fully believe that you deserve to be treated a certain way, you no longer feel the need to convince others of it. You do not tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or behaviors that do not align with your values. Not because you are demanding, but because you simply do not entertain them. There is no need for a long conversation or an emotional plea. A simple action, a quiet decision is enough. This type of self-assurance creates an energetic shift. When people sense that you do not need them to agree with your boundaries in order for you to maintain them, they begin to take you more seriously. They realize that there is no room for negotiation, no space for testing limits, because your actions speak louder than words. If someone crosses a line, you do not need to engage in a debate. You simply remove yourself. If someone treats you in a way that does not align with your standards, you do not argue, you disengage. And this level of detachment is what makes people respect you even more. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear losing connections. They worry that if they say no, if they refuse to justify their standards, or if they walk away from situations that do not serve them, they will be abandoned or misunderstood. But the truth is, boundaries do not push away the right people. They only push away those who were never truly aligned with you to begin with. The people who genuinely value you will respect your boundaries even if they do not fully understand them, and the ones who resist or test them were never meant to stay. A person who holds their boundaries firmly without explanation also exudes an air of mystery. There is something deeply intriguing about someone who does not feel the need to over-explain themselves. When you state a decision and leave it at that, it creates curiosity. Why are they so sure of themselves? Why do they not feel the need to justify their stance? This intrigue works in your favor because it signals that you operate on a different level of self-worth, one that does not seek approval or validation. People often associate silence with weakness, but in the context of boundaries, silence is strength. It is easy to explain, to justify, to seek agreement. But it takes discipline to simply enforce. The greatest power comes from the ability to say no without guilt, to walk away without second guessing, and to stand firm without the need for explanation. When you master this, people begin to see you differently. They recognize that you are not like everyone else. You are someone who knows their worth, someone who does not negotiate their value, and someone who moves with a quiet, undeniable authority. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. At first, there may be discomfort, an instinctual urge to explain why you feel the way you do, why you expect what you expect. But with time, you will realize that the most powerful people are the ones who do not seek external validation for their internal standards. They do not need to explain why they deserve respect. They simply embody it. And in that embodiment, in that unwavering certainty, others have no choice but to value them. Detachment is one of the most powerful silent actions that make people value you. When you are detached, you do not cling to outcomes, you do not seek validation, and you do not allow external circumstances to dictate your emotional state. Detachment does not mean indifference or apathy. It means you are so secure within yourself that nothing outside of you has the power to control you. It means that whether someone chooses to stay or leave, whether a situation unfolds in your favor or not, your internal world remains stable. This is a rare quality, and because it is rare, it is deeply respected. Most people operate from attachment. They attach their happiness to relationships, their self worth to how others treat them, and their sense of fulfillment to external achievements. This attachment creates an energy of desperation, an invisible force that repels rather than attracts. When you are attached to an outcome, whether in relationships, career, or personal life, you unconsciously communicate neediness. People can sense when someone needs them, when their presence, attention, or approval is required for the other person to feel secure. And this dynamic often leads to an imbalance in power, because the one who needs the least always holds the most influence. Detachment, on the other hand, is an energy of abundance. It says, I do not chase, I do not beg, and I do not hold on to anything that is not meant for me. This is a silent but powerful message. When you embody detachment, people recognize that your value does not decrease if they choose to walk away. They sense that your self-worth is not dependent on their validation. And because humans naturally desire what feels scarce and unattainable, this makes you even more attractive. When someone realizes that you are perfectly fine whether they stay or go, they begin to value your presence even more. One of the most telling signs of detachment is how you respond to loss or uncertainty. When things do not go your way, when someone pulls away, when life presents unexpected challenges, do you panic? Do you try to force control? Or do you remain still, allowing life to unfold as it is meant to? People observe these moments. When they see someone who does not crumble under pressure, who does not react emotionally to setbacks, they instinctively respect them. This level of self-control is rare, and it signals that you are operating from a place of inner power rather than external dependency. Detachment also changes the way you communicate. A person who is attached often over-explains, seeks reassurance, and tries to convince others of their worth. They fear silence, they fear distance, and they fear the unknown. But a person who is detached speaks with clarity and brevity. They do not force conversations, they do not chase responses, and they do not try to control how others perceive them. If someone does not appreciate their presence, they do not argue, they simply withdraw. This quiet confidence speaks louder than any words ever could. There is a deep sense of peace that comes with detachment. When you release the need to control outcomes, you also release anxiety, stress, and overthinking. You begin to realize that what is meant for you will always stay, and what is not meant for you will naturally fall away. This realization frees you from the exhausting cycle of chasing, proving, and overanalyzing. It allows you to move through life with a calm, effortless energy, one that draws people in rather than pushes them away. Detachment also protects your self-worth. When you are attached, you tolerate behaviors that do not align with your value. You accept mistreatment, you settle for less, and you compromise on your standards out of fear of losing something or someone. But when you are detached, you never feel the need to hold on to anything that does not serve you. You recognize that nothing external is worth sacrificing your inner peace. And because of this, you walk away from situations that do not align with your highest self, without hesitation, without over-explanation, and without looking back. The most powerful form of detachment is emotional detachment, not from feelings themselves, but from the control they have over you. When you are emotionally detached, you still feel deeply, but you are not ruled by those feelings. You do not react impulsively. You do not let emotions dictate your decisions, and you do not allow temporary situations to disrupt your internal stability. This makes you incredibly grounded. And people feel that. They recognize that you are not someone who can be easily swayed, manipulated, or emotionally controlled. And that in itself commands deep respect. Detachment is not something that happens overnight. It requires inner work, self-awareness, and a willingness to let go of the illusion of control. It requires trusting that life is unfolding exactly as it should, even when it does not seem that way. The more you practice detachment, the more you will notice a shift in how people treat you. Those who once took you for granted will begin to value you more. Those who once sought control over you will realize they have none. And most importantly, you will find that your own sense of self becomes unshakable, no longer tied to anything external, but rooted deeply within. Silence is one of the most underappreciated yet powerful forces in human interaction. In a world where people feel the need to explain themselves, defend their actions, or fill every gap with words, silence stands out. It creates an aura of mystery, strength, and control that makes others value you. When you know how to use silence strategically, you communicate a level of self-assurance that words often fail to capture. You show that you do not seek approval, you do not beg for attention, and you do not fear the absence of noise. And in that silence, people are drawn to you. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it with explanations, justifications, or unnecessary conversation because they equate silence with uncertainty. But those who understand its power use it to their advantage. Silence forces others to reflect, to listen more intently, and to become aware of their own words. When you do not rush to respond, when you allow a moment of quiet before speaking, people feel your presence more. They sense that you are someone who thinks before they speak, someone who does not waste words, someone whose voice carries weight. One of the most powerful aspects of silence is its ability to shift dynamics in communication. When most people feel pressured, attacked, or confronted, they immediately react. They defend themselves, over-explain, or try to prove their point. But a person who understands the power of silence does not fall into this trap. Instead of reacting impulsively, they pause. They let the other person reveal more than they intended. They allow discomfort to settle in the air, making the other person feel the weight of their own words. This technique alone can shift the power dynamic in any conversation. People respect those who do not feel the need to constantly justify themselves. When you respond to criticism with silence, you show that you are unaffected. You communicate that you are confident enough in yourself that you do not need to argue. This is a subtle but powerful way of commanding respect. Instead of proving yourself through words, you prove yourself through presence. You let your actions, your energy, and your silent confidence speak for you. And in doing so, you demonstrate that you are in control, not just of the conversation, but of yourself. Silence also creates an air of mystery. When you do not reveal everything about yourself, when you do not immediately share your thoughts or emotions, people become curious. They want to understand you, to figure you out, to know what is going on in your mind. This curiosity makes them value your words more when you do choose to speak. It makes your presence feel rare, your attention more meaningful, and your opinions more respected. Those who talk too much, who always share every thought and feeling, often lose their sense of intrigue. But those who use silence wisely become unforgettable. Another powerful use of silence is in setting boundaries. When someone crosses a line, many people feel the need to explain why they are upset, why they deserve respect, or why they are enforcing a boundary. But the strongest statement you can make is often the one left unsaid. When you withdraw your energy, when you remove your presence, when you choose silence instead of engaging in an argument, you make a lasting impact. People remember when you go silent. They feel the shift in energy, and they recognize that something has changed. Silence also has a profound effect on relationships. In any interaction, the one who speaks the least often holds the most power. When you are not always available, when you do not always respond immediately, when you do not feel the need to engage in every conversation, people begin to value your presence more. They begin to seek your attention rather than take it for granted. This is why silence is one of the most effective ways to reset dynamics in any relationship, whether romantic, professional, or social. In moments of tension or disagreement, silence can be a form of control. Instead of escalating a conflict with words, instead of reacting emotionally, simply being quiet can disarm the situation. It forces the other person to reflect. It makes them aware of their own words and actions. It takes away their ability to provoke you, because without a reaction, they have nothing to feed on. This is why silence is one of the most powerful ways to break toxic cycles. When you refuse to engage, you take back control. But silence is not just about external interactions. It is also about internal mastery. When you practice silence, you cultivate inner peace. You learn to be comfortable with your own thoughts. You stop seeking external validation and start relying on your own intuition. You begin to realize that not everything needs a reaction. Not every situation requires words. And not every moment needs to be filled with noise. This kind of self-discipline makes you stand out, because most people are ruled by their impulses, their need for reassurance, and their inability to sit with discomfort. Silence allows you to observe more. When you are not constantly speaking, you notice things others miss. You pick up on body language, on subtle shifts in energy, on unspoken tensions. You begin to understand people on a deeper level because you are not distracted by your own need to be heard. This awareness gives you an advantage in any situation. It allows you to respond strategically rather than impulsively, to choose your words wisely, and to move with intention. In a world where people are constantly fighting to be seen and heard, those who embrace silence stand apart. They move differently. They do not waste words, they do not seek validation, and they do not react impulsively. And because of this, they are valued, respected, and remembered. Silence is not emptiness, it is presence, it is power. It is the unspoken force that makes others take notice, that makes them listen, and that makes them respect you without you ever having to ask. Self-respect is the foundation upon which all value is built. It is not something you say, nor is it something you demand. It is something you embody. The way you carry yourself, the choices you make, and the energy you exude tell the world how to treat you. People can sense when someone deeply respects themselves, and they instinctively respond with admiration, curiosity, and even a bit of caution. When you have self-respect, you set a silent expectation that others must rise to meet. You do not chase, you do not beg, and you do not tolerate anything that does not align with your worth. And in that unshakable certainty, people begin to value you. Most people confuse self-respect with arrogance or superiority, but true self-respect is neither loud nor aggressive. It is quiet, effortless, and deeply internal. It is the understanding that your worth is not up for debate, that your boundaries are not flexible for convenience, and that your presence is not something to be taken lightly. People who lack self-respect often try to prove their value to others. They overcompensate, they seek validation, they tolerate mistreatment in hopes of being chosen. But those who truly respect themselves do not need to prove anything. They know that their energy is a privilege, and they act accordingly. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you respond to challenges, all of these reflect your level of self-respect. When you respect yourself, you do not engage in gossip, you do not entertain drama, and you do not waste time in situations that drain you. Your silence becomes your strength, and your absence becomes your greatest statement. People notice when you remove yourself from negativity, when you do not react to provocation, when you uphold your standards without explanation. And in that detachment, they begin to respect you even more. Self-respect is also evident in the way you handle rejection and loss. Many people fall apart when they are not chosen, when someone pulls away, or when a situation does not go their way. But a person with deep self-respect understands that rejection is not a reflection of their worth. It is simply redirection. They do not beg for love. They do not chase after those who do not see their value, and they do not lower themselves to fit into places they have outgrown. Instead, they walk away with grace, knowing that what is meant for them will never require them to shrink. This level of self-respect creates an undeniable presence. It makes people think twice before mistreating you, before making empty promises, before assuming that you will tolerate less than you deserve. It is not something you have to demand. It is something you embody so deeply that others naturally adjust their behavior around you. They recognize that you are not easily impressed, that your standards are not negotiable, and that your presence is not guaranteed. And because of that, they value you in ways they may not even fully understand. Self-respect is not about perfection. It is not about being cold or distant. It is about being so in tune with your own worth that you do not need external validation to feel complete. It is about knowing that you are enough as you are, that you do not have to prove yourself, and that the right people will recognize your value without you having to convince them. This understanding shifts everything. It changes the way you move, the way you communicate, and the way people respond to you. It is easy to say that you respect yourself, but the true test comes in your actions. Do you tolerate inconsistency? Do you allow people to disrespect you more than once? Do you give endless chances to those who show you they are not capable of meeting your standards? If so, then there is work to be done. Because self-respect is not about words, it is about what you allow, what you accept, and what you refuse to tolerate. It is about recognizing when something is beneath you and having the strength to walk away. This kind of self respect is rare, and that is why it is so powerful. Most people compromise, they negotiate their standards, they allow mistreatment because they fear being alone. But the few who do not settle, the ones who choose themselves even when it is difficult, are the ones who are truly valued. They do not chase, they attract. They do not force, they allow. And because they carry themselves with quiet confidence, they leave a lasting impact on everyone they encounter. When you deeply respect yourself, you stop seeking approval. You stop explaining your worth. You stop engaging in situations that make you question your value. Instead, you move through life with certainty, knowing that the right people, the right opportunities, and the right experiences will always align with you naturally, and those who cannot rise to meet your level will simply fall away. This is not a loss, it is a blessing. Because in the end, the only relationships, friendships, and experiences worth having are the ones that honor the self-respect you so fiercely protect. Value is not something you demand, it is something you become. It is not in the words you speak, but in the energy you carry, the choices you make, and the standards you uphold. When you master these silent actions, you no longer chase approval, validation, or recognition. Instead, you move with a quiet certainty that forces people to take notice. You embody self-respect, you practice detachment, you master the power of silence, and you carry yourself in a way that naturally commands respect. People value what feels rare, what is not easily accessible, and what cannot be controlled. When you stop proving yourself, when you stop tolerating less, when you stop reacting to every little thing, you become that rare presence. And in that presence, others must either rise to meet you or recognize that you are not someone they can take lightly. This is how you shift the way people treat you, not through force, but through alignment. So as you move forward, remember this: the most powerful statement you can make is often the one left unsaid. The most impactful move is often the one where you simply walk away. And the greatest way to be valued is to first value yourself. Good luck on your journey, and thank you for being here today.